From the bustling streets of Athens and the historic port of Hydra, to the beaches of Zakynthos and the villages of Kythera, our journey over the coming weeks spans many of the Ionian Islands. Some well known, others that few ever get to visit. But before heading off, you probably want to know a little bit about me. My story starts as a boy growing up in the inner suburbs of Sydney. Like a lot of Greeks early last century, my parents moved overseas to find a better life abroad. They arrived with very little and worked extremely hard to give my sisters and I a loving upbringing. They also made me believe that if I too worked hard enough, I could achieve anything. 54 years later, I've built a successful business, and that has enabled me to do things I once only dreamed of. One of those dreams was to step foot on all 227 inhabited Greek islands, and I'm going to take a big chunk out of that in this first series. It's amazing to think just how far we've gone and how much we've seen over the weeks. It feels as though it was only a few days ago I was walking through the streets of Athens. In the last episode, I explored the island of Kefalonia. It was made all the more special as I had the opportunity to spend some time with a good friend of mine on his farm. It gave me an insight into rural life in a place that retains much of its cultural heritage. In this episode, I'm starting on the island of Ithaka. This is a stunning and rugged place that's relatively free from the masses of tourists, but can make a destination lose some of its charm. From Ithaka, I'm making my way to Levkada. It's a major hub that brings people from all around Greece. However, most visitors use it as a launching pad to travel wider. My plan is to show you that it's incredible in its own right, and well worth spending a few days here exploring the sights. It all starts in Chione, a picturesque port town, built like an amphitheatre with the stunning harbour as the stage.
You know, of all the Ionian Islands, Ithaca to me is probably one of the most rugged. You see behind me, the tectonic movement has moved it on its side. Ithaca has no airport, no sandy beaches. In fact, why would you come here? That's exactly why you come here. Ithaca is awesome. There's only 3,100 in the population, and it only gets between 20 and 40,000 tourists a year. The walks are fantastic. I feel when I come here like I'm 30 years behind times. It reminds me of when I was a little boy, and I see architecture, I see people from those times. It's just a step back in time. It's fantastic. You should come.
Ithaca is a small island, less than 100 square kilometres in size. That said, if you talk to any of the 3,000 or so people that live here, they'll tell you that it's a giant of the Ionian. Obviously not so much in terms of size, but for how much you'll discover here. It has legend status, thanks largely to it being the home of Οδύσσειας, from one of the greatest classic writings, Homer's Odyssey. More on that later. People have lived here since ancient times, including the Romans, Normans, Turks and Venetians. There was even a brief period where the French governed the place. The result is a diverse and rich history with architecture to match. Add into the mix the natural beauty and you've got a little gem that punches well above its weight. Ithaca is a mountainous island with a fertile interior. The green slopes are covered in olive trees with some of the oldest known groves in the country. The emerald blue water contrasts with hillsides, and white sandy or pebble beaches are dotted around the coast. The beauty of the island is matched only by the depth of its history. So if you came here, you'd need either a really good guidebook or take part in a tour. There's just so much to learn about the place that unless you've got some local knowledge, you'll miss most of the story.
So Denise, this is Ulysses' journey. So where is Troy, where he started?
It's right here, Asia Minor.
And where is Ithaca? Right there.
Close, yes, just the other side of Greece.
So all he had to do was go from here to here,
Yep.
but he did all of this. No wonder it took him 10 years.
So you've all watched the movie Troy, where Brad Pitt plays Achilles, and they build a wooden horse to get inside the impregnable walls of Troy. Well, it was Ulysses' idea to do this, but that's only part of the story.
A lot of buildings, there was a complex. Most probably
Look at this.
the storehouse.
Look at that. That's amazing.
Yeah, the palace.
Wow. This is 3,000 years old.
Yeah, masonry, ashlar,
And this
perfectly.
and this is 300 years old.
Yeah, 200, 300.
Yeah. Wow. Denise, this is obviously the palace where Ulysses started and finished his Odyssey.
Of course. This is his palace in Iθάκη, where Penelope was waiting for him for 20 years. It was the Trojan War. The oracle said that if he went to that war, he'd come back 20 years later with no spoils of war, no companions, no nothing, just a poor man. So he didn't want to go.
Everybody wanted him.
Everybody wanted him, and they were true because the idea of the Trojan horse was his, and that's how they got Troy. So they needed him with.
Once the Trojan War was over, Ulysses set sail for home, but the gods wanted to punish him. What should have been a relatively short trip became an epic journey that saw him battling the elements, a cyclops, witches, sirens, and even 7 years on an island under the spell of Calypso. It's one of the most well-known stories to have been penned and has influenced generations of artists, poets, and writers since.
The archaeologists placed the Trojan War at 1200 BC.
So we're talking about 3 and a bit thousand years ago. And I know that we found Troy. We know Troy is there. We know that happened. And we know that the palace is here. And we've even got images of what the palace looks like. We think what it looks like. And there's all this stuff in between. Do you think that the story may have been a few drinks and it may have extended a bit? You know, witches, cyclops, whirlpools, giant calamaris. I think Greeks are good at stories. So maybe Homer, when he recited this to the community, maybe it got dissipated a bit, don't you think?
Well, I believe he embellished some, and he was an artist. He had to put some so it really sticks with you, so you won't lose it, and it keeps you interested. That's how you make the stories.
That's what I love about it.
But I think there is a lot of truth in it, and also that there are so-called instructions for the mariners, that if you go out there, these are the perils you're going to see, and that's how you're going to deal with them.
Denise, I can understand, looking at this right now, why this was such an important destination for his Odyssey, why this was the end of Ulysses' trip. It's so beautiful. Ithaca, there's something about it. There's something about that peacefulness, just the texture and the context of this island and the sea. And where it is, it's beautiful.
I have people coming and looking at the view and telling me, here is where you lose yourself, and here is where you find yourself. And when you have all this, why do you need to do anything else?
Yeah, you're right.
In Western culture, most people grow up learning a bit about Greek mythology. The epic stories of vengeful gods and heroes have been interpreted over and over again by academics for centuries and rewritten by poets and authors who put their own stamp on it. Then there are the artists who have captured the tales in paintings and dramatic statues. From Prometheus and his creation of man to the labours of Heracles, son of Zeus, the classic stories from Greek mythology have influenced the world we live in today and continue to be a source of inspiration and wonder. On the east coast of Ithaca is the beautiful fishing village of Frikes. It's one of those tiny little ports you come across that remain little known to passing tourists. It sits at the end of a long, narrow inlet, and being removed from the world, it's as though time has stood still here for many decades. It's completely free from many of the modern trappings that can burden and erode cultures. One thing that remains from the days when there was no refrigeration is a seafood dish that not only tastes great, but is relatively simple to make. It uses a type of fish called the Barbuni that's prolific in Greek waters and a personal favourite of mine.
I understand this is a fish meal that is based on preservation. So when you've cooked this and it's ready to go, you basically can keep it for a few months. Is that right?
For a month for sure, yeah.
Fantastic. So what are we doing? You put some olive oil in
Now we have
there?
to wait like 3 days until we eat it before it takes the marinade, you know.
Okay, so what are we doing now?
We will put some black raisins inside.
Black raisins, and after the black raisins you've got garlic, is it?
We've got garlic and some rosemary.
Are these barbunia?
Yeah, barbunia.
Which is red mullet.
Red mullet,
Red
yeah.
mullet. It's a famous fish in Greece, isn't it?
Famous and very tasty. It's my favorite one.
Garlic in now. And
some rosemary.
Some rosemary. Oh, that smells fantastic.
Good, eh?
Oh, that smells great. Now, what are we doing with the vinegar? What's going on
Now
here?
we have to turn off the fire.
Okay, so
and then we put the vinegar. Some
all
of the
vinegar?
Not all of the vinegar.
Just a bit of it.
Just a bit. The other one can go in the fish. You have to know that before we fried the barbuni and we put some vinegar on top like this.
Ah, okay. We put some salt and pepper inside
Just
the marinade?
a bit, just a bit. And it's ready. Now we leave it to cool.
For how long do you need to cool?
About 10 minutes.
I'll tell you, the aroma with the currants, the garlic, and the rosemary, those three put together with the olive oil and the vinegar. Oh, I'll tell you what. So what happens now? How long does it have to sit in there before you can eat it?
About 3 days.
And after that, how long does it keep?
About a month.
A month?
Maybe more.
But in a cool place?
Yeah, in the freeze.
Now, can I try it now?
Yeah, of course.
Can I try it? This looks good. Let's see. This is a big test because I'm going to give you the truth. I said, I'm going to tell you BS. I tell you the truth if I like it or not. I tell you what, the bee likes it, that's for sure. That's great, mate. And this is basically a recipe that was cooked for sailors, and that was it.
Yeah, people that were in mainland and they weren't here on the island.
And fishermen when they brought in too many fish.
Yeah.
And they had to keep some of the fish for later. This is what they did.
It was a way to preserve them.
I tell you, with the raisin, it's beautiful, and the Greek raisin's beautiful, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
This is absolutely
Thank
awesome.
you for coming.
I'm going to take this and sit down now.
This is one recipe I'm going to have to get Chef Kyriakos to learn. He's got some amazing dishes in his arsenal, but there's no way this is going to be the first and last time I get to indulge in this. After a long lunch by the water, I needed a walk to burn off a few calories. One problem with travelling through Greece is that the food is amazing and generally quite rich, but finding an excuse for some exercise is easy in a place like this. The setting is spectacular, with dramatic rock formations created by the uplifting of the Earth's crust. The coast has been battered by the elements for millions of years, leaving a jagged shore. The interior has weathered away too, with exposed granite boulders dotting the countryside. Some of the resulting creations look almost man-made, but alas, they're the handiwork of Mother Nature. No artist compares.
This monolith, this creature that's like an obelisk, is called Araklis. Some think it's a man-made structure. Others think it's some sort of geological formation that all the ground around it has eroded. I certainly can't push it over. Oh, I think it moved. Shit, it moved.
Maybe I'm imagining things, or I'm channeling my inner Heracles.
I'm on the northeast coast of Ithάκη, and Ithάκη has some wonderful walks, 70 kilometres of walks actually, and they're fixing them up all the time. But the roads are actually a great drive as well. You come along here and these escarpments in some areas, don't look over here, but just down here, and I don't think you can see it that well, they're just so severe. We have a phobia in my family for heights, and I stand here now and there's a little bit of shake in my right foot. It's absolutely magnificent.
Continuing along the coastal road, the scenery kept evolving, with the only traffic being of the bovine variety. For a change, it wasn't a herd of goats stopping me, instead it was cows, and the amazing views. I can only imagine how challenging it must be for a farmer in these parts. Imagine trying to round up your cattle in these rugged hills. There are famous drives all around the world, from the Amalfi Coast in Italy to the Icefield Parkway in Canada. Each has its own appeal. Here in Greece there are loads of short road trips you can go on that in their own right rival some of the most scenic routes in the world. What's more, in the less populous islands, roads are often empty and you get the place to yourself. Mind you, they can also be a little narrow and occasionally a bit run down. But stick to the speed limit, don't get too distracted by the scenery, and you'll love the experience. There's one thing I'll never get tired of, and that's the stunning landscapes in this part of the world. No matter how much time I spend exploring these islands, I'll never lose appreciation for how remarkable they are. History and culture are great, but I think it's the raw, natural beauty that I love the most. Every island has a village called Παλιόχωρα, which in Greek means old town. So if you want to learn about the history of a place, the best spot to start is often Παλιόχωρα, which is exactly where my next stop was. Here I met Luca. When he's not serving the people as deputy mayor, he's helping folks like me get an understanding of Ithaka's history. In his free time, he also acts as a body double for Novak Djokovic. That last bit I just made up.
We have at least 30 footpaths.
Yep.
And 70 kilometers of walking tracks, clean, mapped and ready to use.
Yeah. Are you walking to Παλιόχωρα? Are you okay? You okay? We're not rolling, it's okay. You're going to Παλιόχωρα?
Speak slowly, please, because
Sorry.
I don't know very
Sorry. Italiano?
Sì.
Sì, no, Greco.
So is there.
Παλιόχωρα is over there.
Okay.
Παλιόχωρα. You like
Yes,
Ithaki?
I don't know. Now we go.
Yeah, okay, no worries.
Thank you.
You make good Ferraris.
Okay.
You make great Ferraris. Thank you very much. Excellent. So, look, we're on our way to Παλιόχωρα. Down here is the capital, isn't it?
Yeah, the capital of the island. Yes.
Vathi. Vathi or Vathi?
Vathi.
It is the largest deep water port in the Mediterranean. Is that true?
It's the deepest natural port.
In the
Mediterranean, yes. That's why it attracts so many yachts and boats during the summer.
Well, should we follow the Italians? We're going to have a look at what they're looking at, eh? Look at these terraces are everywhere. They're everywhere, not just down there, they're everywhere. The whole mountain's full of them.
Even on the top of the mountain.
Yeah, I know. Here you have olive trees, but the terrain is so rugged. I look at these olives here, on this olive tree, they actually pick these olives.
Yeah, they're still picking olives here, but although it's difficult, they carry them with donkeys.
With the donkeys?
In the village, yeah.
That's a lot of work for olives, isn't it? Amazing.
It's very hard work.
Yes.
And the way that we are picking olives here in Ithaka is very, very tiring.
Very tiring. That's why you're thin. You look like Djokovic, you know that?
I'm often amazed by ancient buildings, but here my attention was drawn to something that today would require excavators and a lot of man-hours to construct.
Terraces, they're probably over 1,000 years old.
For sure, yeah.
So much work gone into these terraces because it's just, Ithaki is just mountains. That's all it is. And if they wanted to live, they needed to bench out these mountains to be able to grow what they needed to grow. And I know it takes a long time to build this because my father talked to me about my grandfather building a wall maybe 40 or 50 metres long, and it took him 13 years.
Yeah, they're working very hard.
Unbelievable. And they're still standing 1,000 years later. Wow. Let's keep going. We're going to Παλιόχωρα.
Hiking up the mountain, I got an even greater appreciation for the work that would have gone into the terraces. Much of the island is covered in them, and had they not been built, they wouldn't have been able to cultivate enough food to support the population.
This is Παλιόχωρα, right? And this is a bell tower?
Yeah, yes.
And it's still standing after all the earthquakes.
After 600 years.
What does it say to you about Greek construction? Pretty good.
Yeah.
They make good builders, don't they? Hey?
Sure.
So look up. This bell tower and that little building there, that's what's left of Παλιόχωρα, 600-year-old village. What's happened? Why did everybody leave?
When the piracy stopped, everybody moved close to the sea.
So this was just built for the pirates. Pirates ended and they're gone. Wow. Well, not much to see up here. Let's keep going. We should go and have a round of tennis, eh? What do you think?
Yeah, of course. I've got my racket there.
Djokovic, mate. They all know. They don't think you're the advice man. They know that.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go and have a round of tennis.
Παλιόχωρα might not look like much today, but in its prime there would have been houses on the hillside and a healthy community living here. But with the threat of invasion subsiding and an increase in need to trade with the passing merchants, the village was abandoned and a new settlement built by the water. As you can see by the view, the town below is a busy little place. And even with a backdrop like this, the challenges of living in the hills was just too much for people to remain. At sea level, it's a very different picture. The modern buildings, cars and bustling waterfront are quite the contrast to the serenity of the mountain. Don't get me wrong, it's still a gorgeous and relatively peaceful place, but it doesn't have quite the same atmosphere. A statue of Odysseas looks over the port in Vathi. It's rather ominous, On the one side, you have a proud image of him, looking into the distance with a sense of wonder. Then on the other, there's a not-so-handsome and aged Odysseus, feverishly paddling back to Ithaca. Let's hope my Odyssey doesn't go the same way as his. Mind you, 10 years cruising the Ionian doesn't sound that bad.
We've just left Ithaca and we're headed to Levkada over there. This is Meganisi, which in Greek is big island. It's not that big, but that's a big cave. That's called the Papanikolaos Cave. It's called the Papanikolaos Cave because a submarine, a Greek submarine, and man, we're getting close. A Greek submarine used to hide in here in World War II from the Italian Navy. They'd go out, shoot them and come back. We're going right in there right now, and man, it's a bit scary. Yanni, νομίζω είμαστε κοντά. It's okay, έχει πέτρα εδώ. Where are you going? Yanni, what are you doing? This is too close, buddy. Yanni is scaring the shit out of me here. Because there's shallow rocks everywhere here. I don't know how they fit a bloody submarine in here. Now that's a 30-metre vessel. You can just imagine a submarine of the same size coming through. It'd actually be more precarious for them because of the depth, but they knew the depth, they knew everything. They used this as a regular hiding spot. It's something you really don't want to miss when you come here. It's just monstrous. Apparently it's the second biggest cave in all of Greece. I've seen a few caves. It's the biggest one I've seen. Where's he going? Where's he going?
Having left Ithaca, we made our way to Levkada via a brief stop at Meganisi, a journey of about 30 kilometres. It was smooth cruising across a flat sea, with plenty of scenery to enjoy along the way.
It's a glorious morning. We've just come into Levkada in the port of Nidri. And this is the square. Behind me is Aristotle Onassis, one of the richest men of the 20th century. And to my right and behind me are all these day boats. And this is probably the spot, the central spot of Levkada, where day boats take off to go to Kefalonia, to Meganisi, and to all parts of the Ionian. Here is where you come if you want to start your sailing expedition. There's a lot of flotillas that start here because we're basically central Ionian. To the south you have Kefalonia and Zakynthos, Ithaki, and to the north you have Paxi or Paxos and Corfu. It's just a great place to come. Looking forward to spending some time here.
The great man, Aristotle Onassis. He's a legendary figure that will forever hold a place in history. You'll learn more about him in the next episode. For now though, it's time to get to know Nidri. I know I said Ithaca was where Odysseus came from, but there's been a lot of research that claims he was in fact from near here. I'll leave that debate to the experts. Nidri is a busy tourist hub, but the permanent population is well and truly outnumbered by the volume of outsiders that come here. It might not be the prettiest of towns, but as a place to base yourself for exploring the region, you can't ask for much more.
About 15 minutes drive from Nidri is this place. And about 15 minutes walk from here are the waterfalls. Absolutely magnificent. There's two stages, shallow bit and then there's this nice tall one. I'm here early in the morning because a lot of people come here through the day. In actual fact, they come here for coffee before they go in and on the way out.
It may have only been a short hike, but boy was it challenging. Other than this bridge, I don't think there was a flat piece of ground the entire way up. The trail was rocky and uneven. Thankfully though, there was plenty of shade. The stream also meant it was nice and cool, and the scenery wasn't too bad either. The only downside is that due to the lack of rain, there wasn't nearly as much water flowing through the valley as I'd seen in the past.
The water normally pumps through here.
The walk is well worth the reward at the end. As amazing as this place is when the stream is in full flow, even with just a trickle, it's still pretty special.
Oh, man. Well, I finally got here, and it's not really a waterfall. It's a bit like the Greek economy at the moment. It's a water trickle. But just like the Greeks, who won't go hungry, the substance is there. It'll come back.
Maybe I should have been a poet or philosopher. Nah, I'm definitely a builder. I might come from a background in construction, but I can still appreciate the beauty of nature. Something as simple as a moss and fern-covered waterfall is mesmerising. I could sit and enjoy this scene for hours. It was pretty awesome to have the place to myself. Just a short distance from this spot are the busy beaches and port. Here it felt like I was a million miles from everyone, except for the cameraman and crew that follow me everywhere.
Fine. 20 degrees, 25. A little bit less than 17. Just here. Over there it's warm. It's 3 or 4 degrees difference.
From a high vantage point, you can get an appreciation for just how green and relatively uninhabited the island is. Most people live on the seaside, so the interior is left for farming. You can also see how many olive trees there are. I don't think I've been to a place with so many of them per capita. Pretty much any vacant bit of space has an olive tree planted in it. The amazing thing is, they're all harvested by hand. Where there aren't olives, there are grapes, and one other important crop that you probably didn't realise they grew in Greece.
I'm in the village of Εγκλουβή, and it's special for many reasons. One, it's the highest village in all of Levkada. For that reason, it's 3 or 4 degrees cooler than it is down in the port. It's also really fresh. But more importantly, it's still agriculturally sustainable. Even though there's only 70 people living here and there was 200 in the 50s, they still produce wonderful grapes. And these things, I've never seen them before, but I've been eating them all my life. Lentils. They produce the best lentils in the world. And I'm looking forward to spending some time in the countryside, picking grapes and checking these things out. Γεια σας, παιδιά. Καλημέρα.
There are only a handful of people that live here permanently. In winter, the numbers are even fewer. Most of the population are middle-aged or older because the youth are forced to head to bigger towns or Athens in search of work and education. It's a harsh reality of life in rural settlements the world over. One of the quirks of this place is that despite having such a small number of residents, there are 3 cafes. To share the love, the locals visit a different one each day. Walking through the empty streets, I couldn't help but wonder how much longer the town would be around. The sound of bells filling the mountain air can mean only one thing, a herd of livestock. In this case, a mob of sheep and goats were feeding on the hillside near the lentil fields. I had made my way from the village of Εγκλουβή a couple of kilometres into the countryside to meet with a local farmer called Ilya. He's been tilling the earth his entire life and produces some of the best lentils in the world.
This is fakohorafa.
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 And faki is lentils.
Lentils. Yes.
Lentils in Greek.
Yes.
When they're picked, how high are these?
Half a meter.
So when were the last ones picked?
We cut the lentil in July.
In July. And now it's the end of September. And where are they? Where are those?
That's.
And this is the seedling,
This
is it?
New.
This is the seedling.
New one, yeah.
Okay. This is the lentil. And in this field here, this is all lentils, all fakir.
Yes, yes.
How many kilograms or tons of lentils will you get from this?
We get about 100 kilos per strema.
Per strema. And how much is that in this area here, for instance?
All this area, it's 100,000 kilos.
So 100 tons. You'll get 100 tons of lentils from the mountains here.
Yeah.
Wow.
At the moment, the fields look barren and dry, That's because we're essentially at the start of the growing season. From now, the earthy hue gradually gives way to a vibrant green, before once again changing colour to a golden brown. It takes 3 to 4 months before it's time to harvest, and they rely on rainfall for the water supply. So a hot, dry season can mean all their hard work comes to no avail. Thankfully, there's generally at least a small amount of annual rain, so in a bad year, they still get some sort of crop.
This is the aloni.
Oh, this is the aloni, right. Okay, and what's this?
That's the voltus.
That's the voltus. So here is where they took the harvested lentils and they, on this threshing floor, got the seed out. And in the voltos, they use that for storage, is that right?
Storage, yeah.
Can we go inside?
Yeah.
Bummer. So they'd throw it in like this. Okay. Where's he taking me? I think they were very short people. Don't miss this one. Oh man, it's cramped in here. So αυτός είναι βόλτος, έτσι?
Yeah.
This is a vault, or voltos as they call it. Elias has been telling me about the story. There were 50 such vaults in this area, each with its own aloni, its own threshing floor. And it's here where they processed the lentils. Και εδώ μένανε, έτσι?
Όχι, ήταν για τα ζώα και storage.
Τα πιο μικρά για τους...
Πιο μικρά για τους ανθρώπους.
So, this was actually not where they lived. This was for the animals and for storage. They lived in smaller ones than this. And they would store their processed lentils, all that to turn this into this. And then the Venetians would come and they would take 10% as their tax. This was happening as early as 1600 AD. So they've been doing it the same way up until about 20 years ago for about 500 years. Amazing. Ωραίο πράγμα,
Πολύ ωραίο.
Πολύ ωραίο.
In times gone by, the majority of Εγκλουβή village would leave the comfort of their homes for the entire summer, only to move a few kilometres away to live in these tiny mountain vaults while harvesting their famous lentils. Some steps in the process have obviously modernised, but others remain rather simple and as they were centuries ago.
So to get from this to this is what they did. And eventually they all came out. You see? There. And they just open them up. And you'd be left with this. There we go. Look at the colour. You can see why they're the best lentils in the world.
The lentils grown here would be shipped around the country and traded in other corners of the world. It's amazing to think that for generations, this little island has been a breadbasket for much of Greece. The scale of this age-old industry is huge, but it was only when we got a view from the sky that we really got an appreciation for it. The threshing bed sprawled all around, and I could visualise the townsfolk toiling away. Speaking of toil, after so much walking and talk of lentils, I was starving, so it was back to Miozoid to see what Kyriako could whip up.
We've got a kilo of cleaned lentils. Now, it's very important that they're clean because they might have some rocks in them. And you can tell the Greeks that clean their lentils, they're the ones with the straight teeth. Straight teeth. So he's cleaned his lentils. There's no rocks in it, right? And we have a kilo of tomato, as my wife says, passata. It's tomato, crushed tomato, or I call it crushed tomato, right? A kilo of that. Or you can actually crush the tomato yourself without the peel. Is that right?
Okay.
Some sugar, 5 pieces of garlic, ένα κρεμμύδι. One onion, a carrot, 3 bay leaves and a bit of olive oil. This is, I think, one of the easiest recipes to cook. I love it. I could live on lentils. My grandmother lived to 102 on lentils. My father lived to 100 on lentils. It's awesome stuff. Everybody here, the young people are 90. They call them young at 90. So, τι θα κάνουμε τώρα?
Λοιπόν, θα τις βράσουμε λίγο να τις φύγει ό,τι χώμα υπάρχει Γιατί είναι στο έδαφος.
That's a bit ironic. So what he's saying is we're going to put them in some boiling water now. That's just to clean them. Although they're already clean, they've got to clean them again. So
Because these are small lentils, you only need to boil them for around 30 minutes. Larger ones need to be soaked for a few hours before you start. Once boiled, give them a quick rinse.
Kyriako is just covering the lentils just with a little bit of water.
2-3 δάχτυλα πάνω από τις φακές.
2 or 3 fingers. Onion goes in. Oh yeah. So tomato goes in.
Add all the remaining ingredients at the same time, except the olive oil. That gets added near the end to thicken the soup. In Greece, they say olive oil helps you live longer.
You know what? Even the cameraman loves this stuff. He lives on this stuff. Fantastic, Kyriako. Fantastic.
Είναι πολλές φορές που λέμε μακάρι να μπορούσε ο κόσμος να δοκιμάσει το λάδι το ελληνικό αυτό ή να μυρίσει τη μυρωδία που έχει ρίγανη αυτή τη στιγμή.
Ναι,
μακάρι να μπορούσε.
I'm not giving you any of that. I'm going to keep some for myself. Bravo, bravo, Kyriako.
Χαίρομαι που σας άρεσε.
For such a simple and easy to make dish, it tastes amazing. I'm known for being a little hot-headed at times, and a day after lentils, the hot air is coming from every direction, if you know what I mean. An early start saw us leaving port and making our way along the white cliffs of Levkada. The island actually takes its name from the limestone rock faces, because the word Levkor means pale or white, hence Levkada. Our journey was taking us to a well-known lighthouse, built in 1813, on the site of what was once a temple to Apollo. It became famous for a tragedy that happened here over 2,000 years ago. Locals have been telling the story for centuries, and like a lot of tales from the past, scholars think it's a myth.
We're on the southernmost tip of Levkada. This is Cape Lefkis, and it's famous. Just below that lighthouse signifies the spot where apparently Sappho, the poet from Lesbos, leaped to her death for a lover. It's the original lover's leap, or so the Lefkadans say, because she was around 500 BC. Now I'm trying to check it on Google on my bullshit meter here, but unfortunately I don't have any reception in this part of Levkada, so I'll check it when I go back.
Whether it's true or not is yet to be proven, but there is evidence from ancient times to suggest that Cape Lefkis was a site of human sacrifice and ritual leaps. Apparently, the Romans ran with the story, and it became popular to jump here after being rejected by a lover. They say lunatics and criminals were even thrown from the cliff to purify their souls. Sounds a bit like burning witches at the stake in the Dark Ages. Regardless of the evidence, I'm Greek, so I have to side with the locals. So if you ask me, this is the original Lover's Leap. Except today, thankfully, the only leaping being done is by hang gliders and base jumpers, two activities you'll never catch me doing. There are plenty of great things about having a boat. You can move around as you feel, visit places only accessible from the sea, but it's not always steady sailing.
You know, boats are fantastic, but the problem is you've got to understand that they are a living organism. Something always goes wrong. And if you get upset with it, then you'll never enjoy boats. You just got to live with it and move on. And thankfully, we have a great crew. In this situation, one of those problems, one of the links on our starboard anchor, you like that? The left anchor? Oh, no. Port anchor, thank you, Sarah. Port, no port, left. That's how you remember port, starboard. So our port anchor has a little bit of a problem here. The chain has busted and we've got to fix that. We'll fix that on board. Captain, engineer, Sarah, there's a whole process that's going to happen now. What's going to happen, Yanni? You're holding that rope, so you're going to hold that chain down, is that right?
Yes, we put it 1 meter down.
1 meter down.
We go with the tender. We take out totally the chain from the anchor.
Yes.
We granted somewhere that it is healthy,
yes,
the anchor, and we connect it again.
Fantastic. Let's see what happens. Let's go.
We will lose 1 meter of chain. This is the end of the day.
That's not a big deal, but we've got how many meters of chain? We've got 80 meters.
110.
110 meters. We got plenty of chain. Let's do it.
Amen. Πάμε σιγά σιγά. No, the other one, down.
Oh, I'm just going to move. Now, the good thing about our boat is we've got two of everything. We've got 2 anchors, we've got 2 engines, we've got 2 desalinators, we've got 2 stewardesses.
Did you get
It's all happening, I better.
An Allen key, Yanni?
He's got the Allen keys here, I've got the Allen keys, I'll pass the Allen keys.
Yeah, I think so.
Yanni's doing all the hard work. The anchor is now hanging off the rope. It's no longer hanging off the anchor chain anymore. It's hanging off that little blue rope. So Rhett on top is going to go and cut the chain with a grinder, and we're going to now wait until he's cut it so that we can reattach the anchor. See where it is? See the anchor is attached to the rope? Now, is this a Berlusconi moment? About 2 miles northwest of Cape Lefkas is Porto Katsiki, Port Goat, or Goat Beach. These beautiful white limestone cliffs are dotted right round the Ionian. You see them at Zakynthos at Shipwreck Bay. This is exactly the same, except there's no shipwreck, and you can get here with a car or a boat. And there's very few tourists. These beaches are absolutely awesome, and I'm about to go for a swim, but cheers first. That's really nice. This is one of those postcard locations that holidaying in the Greek islands provides around almost every corner. There are few parts of the world so beautiful and freely accessible without hordes of tourists. Yeah, you might need to arrive early to claim a daybed, but stroll 50 metres up the beach and you'll have a patch of pebbles to yourself. The beauty of the islands is one of the things I frequently think of when I'm back home, but it's not what I miss the most. What I long for is the sense of freedom, the isolation, being away from the noise of the city, the need to check emails, and getting constantly called throughout the day. Here, I choose when I want to be busy and when I want to switch off and let the world pass by. I like to think I have the same independence back home, but it's never the case. The work-life balance tends to get out of whack and the pendulum swings too far towards less enjoyable things. Thankfully, I can take the time to correct it, and any chance I get, I'm on a plane back to this heavenly place to rest, relax, and recharge.